on this episode of The Unwritten Rule, they've done it, folks. The Missouri Tigers men's basketball team has won an SEC game. Kenny and I are two-man in this one. We break down Missouri's win over LSU. We get into a little bit of their weekend conference tilt against Vanderbilt. And then Kenny kind of breaks down what's happening in the All-American Bowl down in San Antonio, where a couple of Mizzou football signees on the offensive line will be in action. Then we get into quick hits, just a couple of Mizzou postseason award type things to talk about there. Armand Membu gets an invite to the Senior Bowl. We discussed that. Just a couple other quick housekeeping things there. And of course, joke of the day will follow at the end. The Unwritten Rule starts right now.
Marcel, where are you going with that disc? You are not putting that on again. Marcel, okay, if you press that button, you are in very, very big trouble.
Attention. Everybody stop what you're doing. It's time for The Unwritten Rule, a Mizzou sports podcast brought to you by the Believe Network, alongside Payton Haverman and Kenny Van Doren. Here is your host, Jack Knowlton.
Welcome back to The Unwritten Rule. Today is Friday, January 10th, 10 days into the new year, and Jack Knowlton is no longer with the show. He has stepped away from the program. He is actually a couple floors below me, writing some stories from the All-American Bowl. And if you can tell, my audio is a little bit different. If you're watching on the YouTube, the picture's probably a little foggy. I don't have my lighting, but if I turn, you can see downtown San Antonio. I can't even see if you guys are looking at it, but foggy here. It's been an experience at the All-American Bowl, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But just Peyton and I for this show. Hopefully, you guys will have Jack and Peyton on Monday's show. But we'll start it off. Won't be too long. We'll talk some men's basketball, get into the All-American Bowl, and we'll wrap up the show with quick hits. Peyton, I got to watch this game with Jack on Tuesday. First time I've watched a basketball game with Jack in a while now. Of course, he did cover the basketball team during that magical season in Dennis Gates' rookie year as a coach for the Missouri Tigers. But just initial takeaways, just from the Tigers finally getting that SEC win.
Well, you kind of hit the main headline there right away. Tigers have an SEC win. This is their first SEC regular season win or maybe it was just first SEC win in at least 669 days. They beat Tennessee in the conference tournament in 2023, but this was their first regular season win since Kenny and I were watching from the student section against Ole Miss in 2023, and that means something. It was actually kind of a funny quote. Dennis Gates, like they asked Tamar Bates and Dennis Gates about getting that first SEC win after going winless last year. And Tamar Bates kind of went, I mean, yeah, y'all saw what it was last year. Like that was, I think, the quote or something to that effect. And Dennis Gates straight up said, I have not mentioned last year one time to these guys. And it is a completely new team for the most part. You have guys like Trent Pierce, Ant Robinson, and Tamar Bates that were there. But I mean, none of them really are the same player that they were last year. I mean, it's just a completely different unit. We made this game kind of sound important in our preview because it is. I mean, this was really after Auburn, which we did not expect them to win. This was a game at home that we really thought that they absolutely had to win if they wanted any chance of doing anything this year. And they went out and they blew the doors off of LSU. It was never a close game. I believe it was double digits for the final 30 minutes of the game. This game was never close. We talked about a few different matchups that Mizzou took that we're going to maybe be able to take advantage of, but one we didn't talk about was the turnover margin. LSU came into this game, I think, the worst in SEC play in turnovers, if not second worst. They were turning the ball over 13 times a game, and Missouri absolutely took advantage of that. LSU came out absolutely sloppy with the ball, did not look at all interested in this game at all. And Missouri was just forcing turnovers left and right. It led to, I don't know exactly how many points off turnovers. I know in the last two games they've forced 35 points off of turnovers, but I don't know exactly how many they forced in this game. 20 points off turnovers, 20 points off 14 LSU turnovers. That's Dennis Gates 101 right there. That's the type of defense they're trying to play at Mizzou. And before even getting into individual performances, I thought as a team, everyone played well defensively. I think this is easily the best defensive team Dennis Gates has had in his time at Missouri. It's basically the good attributes of the tournament team in Dennis Gates' first year, that chaotic, frantic, try and force steals guy, or just guys flying all around, but they can guard a little man-to-man more. I mean, Cam Carter, who's LSU's leading scorer, shot 5 for 15 in this game. He was not good at all. They really only had one guy kind of trying for a lot of it. Givens was able to knock down a few different three-pointers. It was just a horrible game for LSU. And Missouri, they got the monkey off their back, 16-point win in SEC play. They shot up in every metric. They're up 13 spots in Torvik from this game. They rose in KenPom, rose in the net. Very, very successful start to the week in conference play for them.
Yeah, that 16-point lead, you mentioned Payton, just like how much this game was just double digits in favor of Missouri. It felt like at times like LSU would bite at that lead, drop it to maybe 14, maybe get to 12, and the Mizzou would kind of storm back. And I think probably like after 15, maybe 10 to 15 minutes into this game, it kind of just was like the same game, shot for shot. Somebody would make a three, someone would make a two, you'd match threes. LSU really just never had a chance to get back in this game. This was actually my biggest point, Payton. My biggest thing was, keeping steals alive, but also just forcing turnovers and making shots this time around. It was a very sloppy performance offensively against Auburn, especially just on points in the paint. But forcing those 14 turnovers was massive. I'm glad you pointed out just how many points they had off those turnovers. And you look at the steals, and that's just something that I hit on right before the start of SEC play. And Ant Robinson didn't even have a steal in this game. The Tigers still compiled 10 as a team. That's really good. Tamar Bates leading the way with 3, and the 1 block just in this entire game. You're not going to expect too many blocks from this Missouri defense. Was from Anthony Robinson. And I just found that pretty fun there. But just individual performance-wise, Payton, I mean, can you give me just 2 guys? I feel like we can go through the whole everyone who played, but just 2 guys to you that really dominated this performance.
I really liked what I saw from. It's going to sound weird because he had a whopping goose egg in the points department, but I loved what Josh Gray did in this game. LSU is not a big team, and when Josh Gray was in, he was absolutely controlling the boards. 10 rebounds, again, 0 points, 0 assists, and again, sometimes he was dribbling the ball a little too much. I'd like to see him the second he gets the ball offensively to just hot potato it almost, get it out of his hands. But man, it's not even just the rebounds. He is just a force in the paint. I was texting Knowlton about this, Jack, and kind of the rest of our friends that are big college basketball fans. Josh Gray off the ball is just a very smart player on offense. He's really not great on the ball, but you watch him. I mean, there was a sequence here where Ant and him kind of played a 2-man game. Josh Gray just weaved his way smartly into the paint. I mean, LSU's 2 defenders there kind of got confused. And I mean, Josh Gray is such a load down there. He kind of bowled a path into the paint, and it was an easy bucket for Ant Robinson. He's done that multiple times this year, just clearing a path to the paint. And that's really, really big when you have guys that really can drive to the paint, guards that can really drive to the paint, like Ant Robinson. I know Ant Robinson didn't have a great day from 2, but I thought he played better and he took advantage of some of those opportunities. Tamar Bates, he's able to get to the paint. I think Tony Perkins is honestly at his best when he's driving to the paint. Marquez Warwick does it a bit. Josh Gray is just giving Missouri an element they have not had in either of their 2 years under Dennis Gates, and that's an actual big man that is able to control the boards, be a bit of a defensive wall down there in the paint. And he's been, I think, more than we could have possibly expected off the ball offensively. Other guy I'll shout out, Caleb Grill, I thought had a very needed game for him. I was getting a little concerned after his first half that maybe, it was great what he did in non-con play, but it was all against blood donors. And this was the first game where it felt like he really got it going against a high major team. 3 for 5 from deep, and I mean, all 3 of his makes were nothing but net. It wasn't a fluky bounce in. They were
too.
Yeah, exactly. So very very good day for him. He was very aggressive on the boards as well. Overall, I thought I didn't think anyone had a bad day in this game. I really didn't. There was no one I was watching that I thought was completely terrible. Tony Perkins didn't have his best day. Jacob Cruz didn't do much in his minutes, but it wasn't a big deal. It was just a very good win. But 2 guys that I wanted to shout out are definitely Josh Gray and Caleb Grill.
Tigers' first win, Missouri Tigers' first win in SEC conference play and just regular season play since March 4th, 2023, before Payton and I even graduated from college, defeating Ole Miss 82-77 in Columbia, Missouri at Mizzou Arena. Of course, the Tigers did win in the SEC tournament, so that was the last SEC win, was March 10th against Tennessee, 79-71. Was a great game and played pretty tight there with Alabama for a little bit the next day. Before losing that one 72-61 before the start of the NCAA tournament. So the wins are coming. That's just what Mizzou needed. Just kind of get your foot back in the door in the SEC, prove you can win there. The Tigers have another one up on the schedule here on Saturday. Is next up against Vanderbilt. Tigers are staying home for this one at 2:30 p.m. on SEC Network. Payton, for you, I mean, have you looked into anything just on what to kind of expect from this year's Vandy team at 13-2, 1-1 in conference play? And just what you want to see from Mizzou in this one.
Yeah, this is another really, really critical one. Vanderbilt was, I believe, the only road team to win their conference game on Saturday when conference play opened. They also beat this LSU team. They beat them by a score of 80-72. That was a back and forth one. They at times trailed in that game. But Vanderbilt, first-year head coach Mark Byington, I know Knowlton's a huge fan. They have a name I think people will recognize in Hoggard. He, of course, I believe came over from Michigan State, if I'm not mistaken, in the last few years. So definitely someone to look out for there. They have Devin McLaughlin, who it's definitely a different team from last year. There's no Tyron Lawrence is not in the fold anymore. Vanderplat, whatever that tall guy was. This was the only team we thought Missouri could beat last year in conference play, and they didn't do it. So it's definitely a more formidable team. They have Jason Edwards, who's averaging 17 a game. Hoggard, who I mentioned, averaging 11 a game. Devin McLaughlin, who is a transfer in from Boston College, 11 a game. This is a Vanderbilt team that is capable of shooting from deep, too. 32.4% on the season. So not great, but it is capable. So luckily it is a home game for Missouri. Again, I think this is a really, this is the type of game you have to go out and defend your home court. If Missouri goes out and does that most of the year, beat the teams they're supposed to at home especially, I think they'll be in good shape to make the NCAA tournament. Getting to 2-1, especially just before you get into kind of those gauntlet games, the schedule is obviously there's never going to be a game as hard as they played last Saturday again, but there's plenty of games they could lose, and this is one of them. Vanderbilt is a more capable team. 47 in Torvik this year, definitely improved. Missouri is up to 37. Torvik has this game as a Missouri 5-point win. So fingers crossed for that. But I'd like to see this Missouri team, just by any means necessary, get out there, and come out of this game 2-1 in SEC play. I don't really care how it looks. I'd like to see them be able to keep forcing the turnovers. I thought that the rate they were forcing turnovers would go down, but so far in SEC play, that has not been the case. They have shown that they're able to kind of keep that level of play up.
Just what the Tigers need to kind of keep moving forward for an opportunity to play late into March and possibly into April. See how far this Mizzou team can go, but definitely need those. Definitely need those wins early on in conference play, especially those ones at home. But I told this to Jack Knowlton when we first got here. We passed, and we went into the Alamo Dome, and I was like, this is exactly where Dennis Gates wants to be. This is where the Final Four is going to be. Don't know if this team will make it that far, but you do need these wins early on. And Missouri will play its third SEC game on Saturday at 2:30 p.m. on SEC Network. ESPN Analytics gives the Tigers a 65.9% chance to beat Vanderbilt in this one. Before we get to quick hits, we'll jump over just to the All-American Bowl. That's what I am here for Rivals.com and Mizzou today here in San Antonio. And the Mizzou Tigers have 3 guys at the All-American Bowl. If ever was included that previously committed, it would be at 5. Matt Zollers was an early commit to this game before his senior season. It was an August guy that decided that he was going to go to this game. Unfortunately, he did have that lower leg injury and just kind of set him back, and he wasn't going to make it. I actually talked to Jack Lang about it. He said it was great to see him kind of throw and get back in the rhythm of things for early enrollment, and he actually got to talk to him right before he headed down to Texas for this one. And another guy was Javion Hilson, who was that late signee, former Florida State, former Alabama commit, but he chose just to kind of ready himself for early enrollment, kind of back out of this game, which, I mean, kind of take it as you will. He's a guy that's a strong competitor. He really likes winning. He was very outspoken about that when he was at Cocoa in Florida, and just was really just chasing that ring. He didn't really care too much to tell you about why he was going to Mizzou. It was more just, I'm out here trying to win a state championship at the same time. So good mentality there for him. So, I wouldn't say it's anything to be concerned about. But from the 3 guys, if you're watching with us on the YouTube, left to right, that's Jack Lang on the left, 75, Keaton Jones, 72 in the middle, and Henry Fanuku on the right. I asked them to take this photo, and Jack Lang wanted to be in the middle. I don't remember why he said that, but Henry was like, no, you got to be on the outside. You can't make us look small. So Jack got to be there. And just kind of quick hitters on some of these guys. I mean, kind of talked about Jack Lang at length before, but he's gotten some opportunities to play on the inside. I talked to the offensive line coach today, and I'll have that story up on Friday morning on Mizzou Today, just kind of talking about how these guys are performing and for Team West. And Jack Lang mostly at right tackle right now. He's going to be a guy that gets on campus during the summer. He's going to do shot put. He said he's just aiming for second at state because he already knows Jackson Cantwell is probably going to be the leader in that. Kind of a fun quote from him there. But he's played a little bit on the inside, and I talked to him about it. It's a little bit of a changing of stance, and it's kind of just based on need or just giving them extra looks before they get to college on how things will play out. And he's kind of just bouncing around the line. He was very, bullish, and all these guys are really good friends. And I think that's just a, high character offensive lineman they're getting there. Looking at Keaton Jones, listed as an offensive tackle. Missouri likes him as an offensive tackle. He's been playing a lot of guard and center, and mainly center out of necessity because the center that is there for Team West is a little banged up, according to the defensive line coach. So they're giving Keaton Jones some run there. It's a work in progress. It's hard to, give you any evaluations on how he's looking because I talked to him. He's never played center before, but he knows he can do it. If you see him, he has the size to play on the interior. He's not the tallest guy. I think he's around 6'1". We were about like eye height when we were talking, and he could probably slot in at a guard position too. But he is coached there in Coffeyville, Kansas. Mentioned, it's gonna, it's development, and that's one of the biggest things for offensive linemen is just getting these guys up to speed. But when you see that size early on, especially as just an 18-year-old, 17-year-old. I think you're in a good spot, and Brandon Jones knows what he's doing there. Henry Fanuku is a character. Him and Keaton Jones were best buds when I was talking to them. And for Henry, if you're watching, he looks lean. He's a lean offensive guard, and one of the biggest things he has like quick movements, quick twitch, and he just has a lot of like lateral adjustments that he can make, and just moves around so well. And even his Coach Gates there at North Crawley, said he's probably the fastest offensive lineman you've ever seen. Like, he can sprint down the field. Don't know how much that'll help him, but he just has like so much quickness behind him at that guard position. And the offensive lineman coach there for Team West, Joe Hubbard, he was kind of saying the same thing. He just really likes that, and just the versatility he brings. And one of the biggest things, if he's pulling, like he's gonna pull someone like into the ground. I think that's one of your things that you should be excited about with Henry Fanuku, is just with that extra speed, he's going to get to that outside and hit an edge rusher and put him in the ground. So that's a lot of positive things there. And I don't want to beat it to death, but some of those videos are up on our YouTube page, and the stories are on Mizzou Today if you're interested in just hearing a little bit more from those guys.
Shameless plug. Well done, Kenny. You're putting in the hours there. How about that, man? Missouri taking over the O-line groups there.
Yeah, it's been fun. Keaton Jones, Henry Fanuku, both guys that got late invites, and they get to be around Lamont Rogers, Andrew Babalola. Lamont, a former
Whoa.
Mizzou commit, Andrew Babalola, someone that Mizzou really wanted in that offensive line group, and they get to be around them, talk to them. And Jack Lang even brought it up to me, like kind of unprompted. I just asked him, what was it like, getting to play with some guys that you befriended but aren't going to the same school? And he was like, I messed, I gave Lamont kind of a hard time early on, but they're still friends, and it's still a good thing. So it's no hard feelings, and those connections matter down the line. Never burn those bridges. So these guys are ready for Mizzou. Of the three, only Henry Fanuku is going to get to campus early, but he told me I've written about this before, actually back in December for his feature story I did for signing day. He's originally from Ghana. A lot of those connections with some of the guys on the team that have very close connections to Africa and just those African nations. And so that made Columbia feel like home. But he also was a big soccer guy growing up. And I learned this that Lamont Rogers was as well. But for Henry, I asked him, I was like, can you still, are you still good at soccer? And he was kind of like taken aback. Like I would ask that, like, cause he's just kind of like this really good athlete. And he was like, of course I am. So I think one of the best things that I kind of learned from these guys, just being around them, is just they are very high character. And I think that's something that Brandon Jones, sought out a lot of talent. And you can say that with Jack Lang and Henry Fanuku, and definitely with Keaton Jones just being 3 and 4 stars, but also just they kind of fit the character of what Mizzou has sought out.
There you go.
Yep.
All-American Bowl.
Well, that's going to
All-American
Bowl. Navy All-American Bowl will be on Saturday at noon on NBC and Peacock if you want to watch these guys play. The offensive line coach said he will get all three on the field at the same time, so that could be most likely Keaton Jones at center. Now expecting probably Henry Fanuku at left guard and Jack Lang at right tackle, just from what I've seen. And maybe Lang moves into that guard position, you get 3 all in the middle. But just keep an eye out for those guys. Keaton Jones is wearing 72, Henry Fanuku is wearing 55, and Jack Lang is wearing 75. But they'll be out there for Team West, and Team West will be in the blue. So just keep an eye out for them. If you want to watch it, it's free. Watch it on NBC. Catch up on these guys. It's going to be kind of hard if you want to evaluate how they're playing, but it's good to watch the future and see how they test up against some of the best guys in the nation. But that's going to do it just for our first segment, talking about some All-American Bowl and Mizzou basketball. We'll close it up on the other side with quick hits.
Yeah.
Okay. Quick hits time. Kind of a just easy one here. Probably the people don't know him too much, or maybe at all, anybody that's watching with us. But Mizzou lost a GA on the offensive side of the ball for this past season. That's Cooper Williams. Used to play at Memphis. I got his Memphis page pulled up because there's an actual picture of him. You can see him in his jersey when he played offensive line there for the Memphis Tigers. There's always a Memphis to Mizzou connection. But he helped out with the offensive line, was a GA under Brandon Jones, and he took a job at Florida State. He's going to be he is currently the assistant offensive line coach. He had some connections to some of those guys in the Southeast for Mizzou, just kind of assisting on those recruitments, but just another guy that's kind of moving up in the ranks and returning to Florida State. He actually worked under Norvell a couple of years ago.
Wasn't there kind of a interesting little story between this guy and like a center that Mizzou was recruiting?
Yeah, Grant Wise is a class of 2026 center 4-star, and Grant Wise just goes on all these visits. He takes in all the recruitment. So I think he's wants to see what's out there. And Mizzou seemed interested at once. He never really got an official offer, but Cooper Williams said, like, this is what I kind of learned about Mizzou. Sometimes they'll just offer guys to offer them, but a lot of the times they just don't want to extend an offer just to just say that they did, or just to throw an offer out there. They want to throw an offer to someone they actually think deserves it and someone that they could actually recruit. And class of 2026, so it was in his junior season, and it just no real conversation went past that after Grant Wise said he would come on a visit. They never really figured anything out, or an official offer never came through, and both parties just kind of moved in the opposite direction.
Interesting. Well, goodbye, Cooper Williams. I don't have anything remarkable to say about you. Anyways, my jersey of the week is going to be Blake Craig, because the at times maligned kicker wound up being the hero of the Music City Bowl, and his heroics landed him on the AP's All-Bowl team. First of all, I love that the AP does an All-Bowl team. I think that's awesome. And yeah, he got the kicker spot there. Blake Craig, of course, hit the game-tying 51-yarder, and then what wound up being the game-winning 56-yarder. And Missouri ended the year, of course, with that 27-24 victory in a very fun game over Iowa. Definitely a game that I'll have fond memories of. Blake Craig, good for you, my friend. They get his big kicks gave him the edge over Virginia Tech's John Love, according to the AP. Love, of course, made a 60-yarder in the Duke's Mayo Bowl, but Virginia Tech did go on to lose. And it was PJ Fleck, Minnesota's head coach, who was given a Mayo bath from Flava Flav.
You can't say my friend when you talk about Blake Craig. First of all, I'll say that. Second thing, Jack and I were just at the Alamo Dome a couple of hours ago, and there was a high school coach there, and he was just talking to me about the bowl game, and he was like, yeah, that kicker made some big time kicks there in that game, especially to win it. And I was thinking, like, wow, people are kind of taking notice of Blake Craig. And then the AP posted this, and we got our opportunity to talk about Blake Craig again after the season. But yeah, congrats to him. He was a guy who was an All-American at one point as well in his high school career. Looked like they wanted to bring some competition in for him, but definitely needs to just work on some of those kicks within the 41 to 49-yard range.
For whatever reason, interesting at range to be bad at, but hey, he figured it out late.
For Jack Nolan, Jersey of the Week, he's a couple floors below me, like I said earlier in the show, but couldn't be with us today. But his Jersey of the Week goes to Armand Membu, who is the first Mizzou Tiger to accept a Senior Bowl invite to the Reese's Senior Bowl down there in Mobile, Alabama. Mizzou had a lot of guys go last year, a lot of opportunities there for them to get drafted too. But Armand gets his opportunity. Payton, I mean, for you, who do you think is next?
Ooh, I don't know if anyone else is really in line to get one of those spots, are they? I mean, maybe Johnny Walker, or no, Johnny Walker's in the Shrine Bowl. So, has Theo Weiss accepted any of these?
I haven't seen any, no posts yet. But what about Luther?
Oh, I guess Luther could be there. I don't know if Luther really is interested in any of these bowls, to be honest, though.
Might not even
I don't really think he needs it. But Armand, good for him. His stock keeps rising. A couple people are real high on him, putting him in first rounders. So good for Armand. Again, I think Armand was slept on, most important player on the team. Just all world every second he played for Mizzou. Definitely earned the opportunity there. But moving on, Kenny.
I like no capping. He's the main bird.
Shawnee's main bird of the week. Oh my God. Look at this image.
Yeah, so if you're watching on the YouTube, this is my Huddle account from when I played JV soccer my freshman year in 2015, 2016 of high school. That photo is of me from 8th grade. It was like the only photo I could get of like my entire face. I never actually posted any highlights. If you look at my page, just what team I played for, what number I was.
You were 5'5".
115 pounds. I think the 5'5" is a lie because I was 5'2" when I started high school. So I think I lied about that.
Oh my gosh, you're over 6 foot now.
Yeah, it grew a lot. So the reason I chose myself, of course, St. Thomas Eagles, that was our mascot. Jack Knowlton and I were walking back into our hotel the other day, and a guy approached us and asked if we were some of the players for the All-American Bowl. Made me feel good about myself. Sometimes I don't know if I like to look this young. But the guy who asked us, I wish I remember his name. It'll come back to me soon, but Jack and I both forgot it. But he did tell us, and he was a wide receiver at Florida State. So he played football or college football. We didn't ask him why he was there. Maybe he did have a connection to someone playing, or was just in town in San Antonio, because it is at the Players Hotel as well. But he thought Jack and I were players. And I said, yeah, we're on special teams. I'm the kicker. He's the punter. Actually, just I'm a holder. But yeah, it was just really funny. I was humbled. It was humbling that he thought I was a high school All-American.
Yeah, that's kind of ridiculous. I don't know how we mistook that. You could pull off being a kicker, 100%.
What about a holder?
Holders are typically punters.
Yeah.
So I guess you could be a punter. Anyways, moving on. That's kind of funny. My official guess for who the Florida State receiver is Auden Tate. My bird of the week is technically going to be Theo Weiss, a former Allen Eagle. But him and Brady Cook, Theo Weiss and Brady Cook, were CSC Academic All District. I don't know what that means. It probably just means they're real smart. And you know what? Kenny and I were a couple dumb journalism majors. So Kenny is now looking at a grok analysis of this. So why don't you stop doing that? But no, good for Theo Weiss and Brady Cook. I mean, Brady Cook, everybody has heard about him. He's Scholar Athlete of the Year, so this is no surprise, but good for
Nerd.
Theo Weiss as well. Yeah. Couple of
Just
nerds.
two nerds.
Two
Just two
nerds that had to be, that thank goodness they're good at school, huh?
Yeah. Two nerds that were good at football.
Mhm.
And these are cool. Yeah, this last time we'll do one of these graphics probably for both of them for awards.
That's
Jack's,
depressing.
yeah, for you. Jack's main bird of the week goes to Mick Cronin. The connection is he used to be an assistant at Louisville, but he didn't hold back after the loss to Michigan. And this graphic and just video has been tossed around a handful of times across social media this past week. But he said it's really hard to coach people that are delusional. He said that he was just kind of ripping into his own team, ripping into himself just after this loss. If you don't know, Mick Cronin is, of course, the UCLA head coach, for those that didn't know.
Luke Magnanti, good friend of the show, I'm sure was thrilled by this statement. But this is a very Mick Cronin statement. If you have followed college basketball, you know this is just kind of how Mick Cronin is. Very intense, very, very aggressive coach. You know, he's you can tell when he's angry. He doesn't hide his emotion well.
He's a part of the Dennis Skates Club of wearing a suit during the game, and that's a callback to a quick hit Payton had in recent weeks.
Mm-hmm. You gotta love guys that wear suits. Best thing I learned this week, Kenny, is going to be an old Mizzou opponent. The Athletic, I believe it was Sam Blum. I don't remember the exact guy.
Angels beat writer.
Yeah, Sam Blum is writing about Mississippi Valley State basketball, who Mizzou, of course, beat by 72 for the program record earlier this year. It was a good in-depth piece. It's been kind of publicized, like schools like MVSU, just a lot of SWAC schools. Those buy games are pretty much how they fund their entire athletic department. I'm not going to spoil the whole story, but I definitely recommend you go read it. It's on The Athletic. It's very worth your time if you have a subscription. George Ivory, the head coach, also doubles as the interim AD. Some of the things you hear, like just about the travel schedules, the funding this school gets, it's just very fascinating. There were a lot of interesting tidbits in there. I kind of think my favorite one was that they have an assistant coach on staff who makes a grand total of $40,000 total annually, which is just unbelievable to think about in D1 college basketball. But made me feel bad. No, actually, now that I think about it, my favorite stat from this thing, they do not have a non-conference victory over a D1 program since 2000, and I think it was eight or six, and it was over Central Arkansas. Since then, every single non-con they have played against D1 schools has been a loss, which is just crazy. But
yeah, something like 18 or 19 years.
Yeah, it's been like 18, I think it was. So like 06 or something like that. But
was just Mizzou mentioned?
Yes, they did mention the Mizzou, just like the travel. They had to, right after that Mizzou game, so what happened was they woke up at 2 a.m., drove from Mississippi up to Memphis, took a flight to Missouri, and their next 21 hours was getting ready for the game. They had a long practice. They had a brief rest period. All of that to go out and lose by 72 to Missouri. And then they had to, within 24 hours, drive all the way down to Texas for a game against the Longhorns. So it's just crazy. I feel really bad for those players. It's just a program that is set up to fail. Really, you can't really blame any of the players or the coaches. It's just a tough situation. But I definitely recommend people kind of read about it. I think it painted it in a new light for me. You know, it's easy to just look at the box scores from Mississippi Valley State teams and point and laugh, but It was pretty crazy reading some of the stuff in there.
I like to think that the Twitter account, the parody basketball account that is run for this, also kind of shed some light and put this in the eyes of a lot of journalists that aren't covering this team, because that account kind of took off right after the Mizzou game, because some
It
people
did because
found that
they
people
had
thought it
that
was
thing.
real.
Yeah, they had that refs are tripping
Yeah.
highlight, and then they had another highlight like great 3-pointer, and they blacked out the score. That funny thing about that Twitter account, it's mentioned in this article.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, I was
They
hoping it
talk
was.
about how almost every D1 program has their own like Twitter account and everything to like get just has their own Twitter account set up. Mississippi Valley State is not one of them because they don't have the resources. And then they mentioned the parody account and how it kind of took over, mentioned the blocking out of the score in the Missouri highlight.
Yeah.
That is mentioned in this article.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate circumstance, but it's just really what happened. I mean, it's something that happens, and good on the Athletic to cover this. Moving on to some more positive light, kind of a fun story here. Peyton, I'm going to stop telling you things beforehand because I feel like this would have been more of a fun story to tell you without you knowing it. But best thing I learned this week on my way before I got to San Antonio, I got a rental car in Houston, and the rental agent just kind of figured out what I was doing, and was just telling me that he had a family member who was considering going to Mizzou, and he was from Murray, Kentucky. And I was like, okay, well, there's only one guy from Murray, Kentucky that's considering Mizzou. I was like, it's your cousin Jeremiah Jones. He was like, yeah, it is. So I thought that was really cool. He told me that there was like some instances there, just losing his coach. Losing his coach, wasn't a good thing at Nebraska, but he got a better opportunity, just to stay with the Huskers. And he was mentioning, he's a loyal guy, but he's still looking at Mizzou because some of these teams came on late. And you always hear like loyalty and kind of pledging to the university and not just the coach. But one of the biggest things that he mentioned is he is listed as an athlete, and he thinks that there's an opportunity for him maybe just to move to edge rusher if his size keeps getting bigger. He's listed at 6'5", 215 on Rivals when he signed. But he also just wanted to play more wide receiver. But someone that big, I mean, I understand why Mizzou saw him more as a tight end
receiver.
Yeah.
Lord.
And so, yeah, because his primary recruiter at Nebraska was the receivers coach. So I think that was what kind of played into his decision. But you can look at photos, and I've seen him a couple times. It might be a little bit hard to find. He is the largest human on those fields for Murray.
No, I believe it. That's so crazy. Of all the rental car people you could have run into, you run into what was he? World. He was Jeremiah Jones's uncle?
His wife is cousins with Jeremiah Jones, so kind of like
is
cousins. Okay. Cousins. And the rental agent, he played football at Murray State, and so he was a college football player as well at the FCS level.
Wow, Jeremiah Jones, Murray State legacy player, and the Racers couldn't reel him in. Shameful.
They couldn't reel in the hometown kid.
Yeah, sad.
But
no, that's that's a cool story.
What do people say? 6 degrees of separation, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, I think mine's 1. It's ridiculous how I can find a connection to people, and that was just one of those things. It's just fun thing you never think about. This one comes from Jack. The best thing he learned this week is that Georgia quarterback Carson Beck went to the transfer portal. John Garcia of Rivals.com confirmed. There was some, just kind of came out of nowhere on Thursday that he was going to enter the transfer portal. Immediately when I sent this to you guys, Payton, and some other guys that we went to the University of Missouri with, I was like, Miami. I mean, for you, where do you think the Georgia quarterback ends up?
Miami. I mean, he's got ties down there. They've been sniffing around for a QB for a bit. Feels like, it's a similar situation where Beck declared for the draft, and now all of a sudden is in the portal. I mean, Cam Ward last year declared for the draft, and then all of a sudden committed to Miami in the portal. Feels like that's where it's headed. I think he is also in there with a do not contact tag. That was very while we were recording, I think that came out. So it feels a little too obvious. We'll see what happens with it, but I think that would be the way to go for him.
Missouri State? Do you think the Bears have a chance?
Yeah, man, he's going to be a Grizzly.
He said he's going to consider all options, is what I saw a report.
When Pete Thamel said all options, I don't think he had Mo State in mind.
Texas Tech, the most expensive 8-4 team in the country. And I will say, I'll throw his name out there. Parker Thune, I did say that to him, and he agreed with you, Payton.
Yeah. I mean, Texas Tech is throwing gobs and stacks of money at people. I mean, and fair play. You're allowed to do it in this era. And they're getting good players out of the portal. I mean, I think pretty much every site has them as like the top transfer
Number
class
one.
because they've brought in so many guys, and a lot of them are high caliber. But I would caution, like, Texas Tech feels like one of those where it's like a powder keg that could explode. Not like in a in just a toxic team culture, just like these guys have no cohesion because they've never played with each other before type of thing.
2022 Mizzou football, and then they will parlay it into a trip to what's the best bowl game for a Big 12 team, Payton?
Alamo, I think, gets first pick.
Okay,
if I'm not mistaken.
2026 Alamo Bowl champs, Texas
Pop
Tech.
Tarts Bowl is also up there.
Okay, we'll go Pop Tarts Bowl. That's gonna do it for quick hits. Payton, you want to end it with a joke?
Sure thing, Kenny. This one comes from our favorite TV series, The Today Show. Why do dragons like to sleep during the day? Any guesses?
Is it something to do with breathing?
No.
I don't know.
Because they like to fight knights.
Okay, that's good. That's really good. Yeah, that is really good. That's going to do it for the unwritten rule. Jack and Payton will have you on Monday. Hopefully, I won't be able to do that. I'll actually be in St. Louis, Missouri, so I don't have an opportunity to jump back on with you guys.
What are you doing in St. Louis?
Going to a party. With the old friend, Aaron.
Old friend Aaron.
The old friend Aaron. You're going to see me next week, but hopefully Payton and Jack can hold you down and talk about some Mizzou Vandy basketball. It's just some other things, maybe some portal additions or anything else that happens over the weekend. But until then, it's been a pleasure just leading the show again. Look at this, two main guys holding the show down. Yeah. Payton and I, like the old.
We might as well start calling this the Unwritten Rule, featuring Jack Knowlton, obviously.
His bio on Twitter used to say that he was the guest because for a while there, our senior year of college, he was not on with us. But that's going to do it. You guys have a safe weekend wherever you are. It is cold out. It is snowy out. But until then, we'll see you next time.